Nice to meet you. My name is Dr. Patricia Riba. I'm a pediatrician in Orange County, and I've been working about 20 years now, working with a multidisciplinary team to help really feed kids, and especially those with trauma, special needs, and living in poverty. We've seen a huge storm with the fallout of two pandemics colliding, the obesity epidemic, which was already in full force, and then COVID-19. So today I just wanted to give some tips and some tools for either if you're a provider on how to guide your patients, or a parent on particularly those with children that are on the spectrum, or with ADHD, or any kid. This works for across the board. So on some key things that we feel, my team and I have really come to believe that will really help, like finding ways to curb screen time, kind of how to do that. Since screen times are so prevalent right now, working on the psychology of feeding and really understanding what you can control and what you can't control in the feeding process. Some tips on meal planning, just so you feel secure that the child's being offered appropriate nutrition. And then I wanted to end it with just some free resources that our team and I have put together, that you can use, either parents or schools or providers can use to help kids further. So what we're seeing it's interesting with the data that I've been reading coming after the pandemic is that ultra processed foods went up during the pandemic. Screen time went up, shocking. We're on Zoom right now. We're still having the residual effects of that. Alcohol intake went up. That's for the parents, I believe. And obesity went up, particularly for those that are already overweight or obese. And for some reason, the 2 to 5-year-olds was the biggest age group that went up uniformly. So, and why? Okay, well, everybody was under stress, and we were in a lot of the things, especially for those 2 to 5-year-olds, was they didn't have their normal ways of dealing with stress, but going outside and playing in the parks because they were all closed. Their parents were stressed, which always affects the kids. So my team has been we switched over to telemedicine. We really started seeing the trauma of the pandemic and how it was really affecting kids, especially those with special needs, especially those living in poverty, especially those of race, and the ones that were already overweight and obese, but all kids across the board. And so we've kind of, over the last 20 years, we feel like we've been kind of gearing up to get to this point where we could actually be some help. And so for 20 years, we have been treating obesity in these circumstances. And I've always felt uncomfortable being considered an obesity specialist because I'm not. We really just work on, helping families become healthier and overcoming barriers to being healthy. And whether that affects your blood work through, being pre-diabetic, or your weight being overweight or underweight, or your stress level, these types of things are now being recommended by the Surgeon General, or the former Surgeon General, I should say, of California, Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, as things that we should be doing to actually protect kids from trauma. And all children have gone through trauma, just being under 18, and have survived during the pandemic. So if we can do these things, if we can work on just some basic things that they're recommending, that my team and I have been doing already, we ended up at the same place, but from different places, spending more time in the sun, eating more fruits and vegetables, drinking more water, playing more, being involved with, sports, if that works for the child, being safe, family meals, getting adequate sleep, spending time in nature, getting resources for counseling if that's needed, spending time in nature, like I said, mindfulness, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and just good medical access. The solution's really going to be to focus on, if obesity is what the reason was, but it could be, like I said, this is good for anybody. The focus, and whether your child's overweight or underweight, the focus really needs to be on health and not weight. When we focus on health, that comes from a place of self-love. when we focus on weight, that actually comes from a place of self-loathing. You can build on self-love. So I want people eating salads because it's good for them, because they love their body and they want to take care of it, as opposed to that they need to lose weight. And you can see how that's just a different frame. We want to prevent eating disorders. I think with the obesity epidemic, one thing that we're seeing now, post-pandemic, especially with the after COVID, is we're having a rise in eating disorders. And part of that is just that they were using food and screens to cope, and now the diets have become a way of coping, and we'll talk about that. ACEs are adverse childhood experiences. Children, like I said, the pandemic is an ACE. If parents have been incarcerated, if the child has been living in poverty or suffered any type of abuse. Those are some parents divorced. So there's a bunch of criteria that they have actually signified as an adverse childhood experience. And if children have 4 or more of those, they have a 20-year decreased life expectancy. And that's why we really want to kind of dig in and for all children, and really start understanding how to protect them. And instead of using, the platform of the pandemic to continue to spiral our health, we really want to use it as an opportunity to make changes that will last for a lifetime. And so at the end of the day, it comes down to healthy habits. And so we do this umbrella with our patients and with actually parents and older students when we go to high schools and middle schools and so forth. And I give like my general thing. I mean, if this was like teenagers, we might add vaping and some of these other things, alcohol use, or with adults, those might smoking and things like that might be part of it. But really, what is raining down on your health? So there's all these things raining down on our health that we're aware of. I mean, you just turn on the news and the stress is crazy. The pandemic was bad. Many people feel unsafe. They feel stressed. They may be staying up too late, maybe because of screens, maybe not. With children, there may be bullies. They may have been put on a special diet or dieting, trying to lose weight, which actually can be a stress on their health. They could, just sodas and junk food will rain on your health. Screen time will rain on your health. And so our job, as my team and I have been proposing, we were trying to teach other providers, is really to help push that umbrella up to protect against the unhealthy things that are raining down on us. So exercising or moving more. And, we've had patients with special needs that are not going to go on the basketball team. But for one, we had that he was amazing he used to love to help his dad, garden. And so mom just moved the trash can farther away from him, so he would have to take more steps after he was done pruning the plants, which he enjoyed doing. Then he had to walk a little bit more to throw away the leaves and so forth. So, I know our parents of special needs kids are amazing at figuring out the creative ways of increasing exercise or spending time outdoors. And I encourage you to kind of just, think about that. Learning, sleeping, spending time in the sun, listening to your body. Those are all healthy habits. A lot of times the best thing to do is rest, and it's not to go exercise. Drinking more water, family meals, eating more vegetables, reading from books, being grateful, spending time in nature, and eating more fruit. So those are just some of the things that we really feel will help. And what we recommend is you might want to do umbrella yourself with your own family, and then don't try to tackle them all at the same time. You're going to learn a lot from me today on, especially the ones around food and screen time, but maybe just pick one. It takes about 3 weeks to make a healthy habit. So just picking one healthy habit. And then, you got the umbrella. Once you master that one after 3 weeks, then grab another one. And over time, it'll be a much more sustainable way of being healthy than trying to do everything all at the same time. So the first thing that I do, and people get so mad at me because they think they're going to show up to me and I'm going to have them eat salmon and kale salad, and they're going to, and they're going to have to restrict their portions. We don't do anything with portion control. We do teach people how to eat more natural, healthy foods. But the first thing we do before we do that is we know that kids and adults, they use screens and food to cope. So if food or screens as your coping mechanism, and we're all of a sudden going to be like, let's be healthy and just take these things away, you're actually going to add stress to that person, and it's going to backfire. So I have had all kinds of cases where, mom decides today's the day I'm taking away the tablet, and the police come out to the house. It's going to be a hot mess. So what we recommend first is just kind of building up some healthy coping mechanisms. So, and to teach kids, hey, it's okay to be sad, and there's some healthy things to do. And also, how are we modeling that? Like, are we like, oh, I had a bad day, I need a glass of wine? Or are we like, I had a bad day, I'm going to do some yoga, or I'm going to draw a picture, or I'm going to go for a walk? So we can start as parents modeling this type of behavior, and working with kids on developing their own healthy habits as well, and that will help them cope. Drawing is always a good one. Lego, something with our hands, something outdoors. We have a bunch of healthy ways of dealing with stress that I have listed here. These are all mindful activities. So you'll notice there's nothing on a screen. And part of that is we feel safe when we actually live life the way we were intended to, when we are experiencing life through all 5 of our senses. So if we're plugged into a screen, that actually adds stress to our bodies, because we feel less safe because you're only using 2 of your 5 senses. So if you're at the beach and you're sitting on the sand and you feel the sand and you taste the salt air and you smell the barbecues grilling and you see the birds and I'm messing up on all my senses, but you get my picture. So when you're where you're at and you are using your 5 senses, you are truly relaxing. Your body will feel safe. You're experiencing life the way it's intended to. So I have some, yoga, visualizations, journaling, breathing exercise, being with friends, listening or playing music, going outdoors. Those are all great ways to relax your brain. And like I said, they're all unplugged. If you're going for a walk but you're on your phone, actually that phone you might be getting some movement of your legs, but it's not relaxing your brain. And we really need to find opportunities to relax our brains and teach our children to do the same. So when we were designed, like I said, to use our 5 senses. So, thank goodness I have a slide in here for me. So, like I said, what you see, what you smell, what do you hear, what are you touching, what are you tasting, and those are really to kind of get down. I journal every morning. I started during the pandemic, and my father died during the pandemic, and there was a lot of stress with being a business owner, and that's part of what I would journal about. What am I seeing? What am I smelling? What am I hearing? What am I touching? What am I tasting? And that was a good way to kind of bring my brain from kind of thinking about all kinds of things to just being in the moment. And it's a great way to relax your brain. It's a great thing to model for the kids that you're taking care of, and it's a great thing to try to instill in them. And so why not screen time? I know screens have become a great need for us to conduct business. It's a great tool for parents to get kids to behave at the dinner table and so forth. And, wherever you are on this, I just want you to understand that when kids are on a screen, they're only using 2 out of their 5 senses. And so they're actually feeling less safe. And so there's been studies that have showed that it increases BMI levels, which is like weight related, increases sugary drink intake, delayed language development, poor communication skills, aggressive behavior, more likely to smoke cigarettes. They're more likely to have headaches, neck aches, and back pain, and they're going to have worse issues with mental health. And I think it's just because they don't feel safe and they're not developing those actual mindful activities will help them relax their brain. So where do you begin with this? So here's my nugget of screens are here to stay, right? And we all have different experiences with it, and you have kids of different needs and so forth. And I have parents with kids that are severely impaired, have lots of issues, and mom finally gets to go out to dinner, and the only way she can handle it is if her son or daughter or whatever is on an iPad. And so I'm just giving this as this is the ideal situation, and we kind of have to work our way to get there. And so don't, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just we'll work on these 3 areas, and like I said, just try one thing at a time that you think might work best. But the places that we as a team have been recommending that's been really effective is to focus on decreasing screen time during meals and snacks. In fact, they did a study out of Italy, and they found that people watching a screen while they ate were more likely to gain excessive weight. Why? Because you're not listening to your stomach, you're distracted by the screen, and we want people to connect with their brains and their bodies, and you can't do that if you're distracted on a screen. So turning off screens during meals and snacks, turning off screens an hour, hour and a half before bed. And this is one of those things like, okay, if this has become your child's coping strategy, maybe we don't start with an hour, hour and a half. Maybe that's the ultimate goal. Maybe you start like 15 minutes before bedtime and you work your way back. Now, the reason we say hour to hour and a half before bedtime is that blue light from the screens. And blue light in our brains, we are very simply designed. Blue light is the blue sky, and blue light means it's daytime. And so if it's nighttime and you're looking at a blue light or a device before you go to bed, and you don't have blue blocker glasses on, or you don't have settings appropriate, your brain will get confused, and you'll end up sleeping worse and having a harder time falling asleep and not sleeping as well as if you were not to watch that. So it's a good idea to try to get in sleeping routines and stuff like that before bed that are unplugged. And like I said, the goal is to get to an hour, hour and a half before bed. We have Alexa at my house, and she just kind of starts playing classical music about an hour, hour and a half before bed. And then we just turn off our screens. We'll set our alarms at that time, and then we'll go about doing other things. And then the last time that we really want to watch out for screens is when a child's feeling sad or emotional or stressed. Now, not on day one if their coping mechanism is screens. Let's build on something first, playing with Play-Doh, Legos, spending time outdoors, playing with the dog, whatever, journaling, drawing a picture of how they're feeling. Work on that every day, and then start doing it when they're not feeling well. It can become a great comfort to them. So we want to kind of build these things over time, and really teach kids, and for ourselves, like if we're feeling bad, to start modeling these types of behaviors. So I kind of want to shift gears from screens and talk a little bit about meal times. So meal times can be incredibly stressful, especially if children are picky eaters, or parents are concerned for them to either eat enough or not too much. Medications and all kinds of things can interfere with this. But let's just get to basics. So if we can try to encourage family meals, and family meals in a perfect world is turning the TV off, sitting down as a family, and making children feel loved for who they are and not what they eat. So it's not the time to micromanage. Just let them listen to their bodies, and we'll talk a little bit about the psychology of eating later. Meal times do not have to be an hour long. They do not have to be a half hour long. They can be 10 minutes. It depends on the developmental place. It could be 5 minutes depending on where the child is, and so forth. But children who are involved with family meals, they tend to be healthier weight. They tend to have decreased problems with alcohol, drugs, early sexual behavior. They've done studies, and they find that children that have family meals have more positive outcomes than if they were in sports, working with tutors, in church groups, and getting music lessons. So we think we're driving all around trying to get these kids in all these activities, and we've kind of put the family meal on the back burner. But this is something protective that we can do as a family. It might not work out for every day, but if we can try to make some time for family meals, I think it's a really important way of setting up a foundation for a healthy child in the long term. Now, there are some specific issues that I wanted to just talk about with kids on the autism spectrum. It's just and everybody has a different story. I would say roughly 30% of the patients that we take care of on a regular basis have some sort of special needs, and many of them are on the autism spectrum, and I could tell you a million stories. So I'm just kind of trying to use some of the literature and talk a little bit in general about some issues that may come up. And then, you all have your individual things, but hopefully this will spark conversations with your therapist and your providers and so forth. But like sensory issues can be a huge part about eating. Cafeterias, there can be issues with lighting, the noises, the movement, and so forth. And this can trigger kids to get into fight, flight, or fright, where they're gonna, get violent or, emotional or yell. They're gonna run away. They're gonna shut down. And so obviously that's tough. And so my advice is to really, as a parent, as a provider, like start keeping journals. I don't care how much they eat or but I'm kind of especially with my kids where we're seeing outbursts, we're seeing stress, we're seeing fear, we're seeing all these things, these secondary things around meals, to kind of keep a journal of like, okay, where were you sitting? What was going on? Okay, it's every time in the cafeteria. Like, can we go to the cafeteria? Like, what's the cafeteria look like? Is there another place that this child could eat? Maybe the lighting is messing them up. Maybe there's a certain sound in there that they're uncomfortable with, or certain smells and so forth. And so trying to gauge treatment as to like specifics on the kid sometimes takes a little bit of like stepping back, and instead of reacting to everything and immediately drawing conclusions, to really see if we can figure out those patterns so we can support the child as best as possible. Social and language skills. There's the great article talking about a kid who would not eat Thai food because he literally thought it was made out of neckties. So that is, and so sometimes just talking through things and, and seeing what the fears are, instead of assuming, oh, he hates chicken, oh, he hates that, oh, he's picky, whatever, really trying to get to the source and trying to dig in. And like I said, sometimes these things take a while. Fear and aversion of choking, and it might not even be relevant right now. It might have happened a long time ago, but there still may be that fear. There may be executive functioning issues where the child's not quite sure when they're full. There might be medications that are interfering with hunger. And there might be like a reflux or other pain associated with eating that may take time, and we might have to figure out, okay, every time we have something spicy, we're starting to see this happening, and maybe that's like reflux or something like that. So like I said, if you can be a detective and not just talk about the specific foods, but the situations and so forth, and then parents, your kids better than anyone. So over time, you're the best investigator of what's going on, but you can work with your provider and figure out how to do this. And then from my perspective, some things that do help with some kids, not with all of them, but just getting them involved with creating meals, mentally letting them know, hey, this is, we're going to sit here for dinner. Maybe they even help to set the table. Then they know where everything's going to be, instead of kind of, they're walking in and it's more shocking to them. So especially maybe for a holiday, or getting them involved, maybe setting the table the day before, talking about these things a couple days before, getting them used to these things, and so forth, what to expect and so forth. Making sure they have a comfortable seat. Those are basic things. Can their foot touch the ground? Are they comfortable? Is the chair feel right on them? And then I like to, obviously we'll talk more about in detail, but just, continually working on adding foods, but not, instead of like taking things away. So I think that we're just going to continue to add more variety, and over time, this is like the stock market. You cannot go by one little meal, one snack, one day. We're going towards trends over time. And so it can take up to 28 times to offer a new food to a child to know if they like it. So most parents, they serve it once or twice, and then they walk away and they're like, he hates this food, and they never serve it anymore. And they talk about the fact that they hate it, which we call labeling. So you really want to just work on adding it and not pressuring the child to eat. And we'll talk a little bit about that, and really using good psychology around food. In fact, even for the kids with ADHD, even if their appetite is affected by the medications are on, Ellen Satter and some other people are consistently giving us feedback through research that no, we need to stay the course and just continue to use the good psychology when feeding them. Because what happens if we don't, then the food becomes something else. It becomes more of a power play. So let me explain that a little bit. So there is a psychology to feeding kids. This mom's not doing it right. Okay, at some point she's going to key my car because I found this picture on the internet. I really should find another one, but she really, I mean, this is how we feel. We want to get those kids to eating the food, but look at that poor baby and that huge plate, and she's got him manhandled and so forth. So what we really want to do is we want to avoid things like coaxing, like, oh, just try it, just try it. There's so many studies that support the fact that if you coax a child to try to eat a certain food, they're less likely to pick the food the next time. So the more you talk about it and you're like, this is so good, and you're like, broccoli is amazing, and they know it, they can see right through you. So if a natural like response, like, oh wow, this tastes amazing, like, and it's a natural response and it's not to manipulate, that's okay. But to use it as a way of coaxing, like, try it, take a bite, that, I wish it worked, but it doesn't. So bribing, if you eat your green beans and you can have ice cream, well, what does that mean? If I eat this, I can have that as the reward. Ice cream, then ice cream. We really try to not use food or screens as a reward or punishment. It's so hard. Let me say that again. Let's try not to use screens or food as a reward or a punishment. We really want to try to find other ways of rewarding kids. Like I said, some of those mindful activities, time together, reading a story, doing Legos together, things like that. But we really, especially around food, we really don't want to bribe. Oh, you can play with your trucks if you eat your green beans. Unless you're working with a therapist and there's specific issues, really want to avoid that, especially in the formative years. It really makes a big difference if we get away from doing that. Labeling preferences. I will tell you, when I was a little girl, I hated tomatoes. Now I go to Tomato Mania every year at Rogers Garden and I grow them all the time. But if I have a whole bowl of gazpacho soup, I get a little heartburn. So tomatoes don't really agree with me, but they became such a big deal when I was a little girl. Patricia hates her tomatoes. Tomatoes, tomatoes, tomatoes. You have to eat the tomatoes. The dog wouldn't eat my tomatoes. It was a lot of drama. And so just serve it, and then like the Frozen song says, let it go, and just serve it and serve it and serve it, and don't talk about their preferences, especially in front of them. I can give you so many examples with patients. And then the last thing is really what we're recommending for this proper psychology of feeding kids. It's called the division responsibility. It was created by this woman, Ellen Fatter, who's amazing, not only a social worker, but also a registered dietitian. And what the approach does, it keeps everybody sane, and it works towards the whole family, which is really important because parents end up being a short order cook. Okay, this person has to eat this and this person has to eat this, and that's not. And in fact, we'll have kids, we'll have one on the spectrum and one not, and there's so much attention to eat, you gotta eat, we gotta eat. And the one that's not is like, look, I'm eating, I'm being good. The kid's not even listening to himself. So when we talk about table talk and things to say and not say, this goes for all kids regardless of what's going on. And it really helps get them a healthy relationship with food. You see, every relationship we have, it takes two to tango. Parents have a job in the feeding relationship, and the child has a job. If the parent's doing the child's job or the child is doing the parent's job, then all of a sudden it's dysfunctional. It's not healthy, and that's going to give the children a bad relationship with food. And it's so frustrating for the parents too. So it's nice to know. I like this division responsibility. Like I said, I have a variation on it. I added the last two things. Her stuff is in the red. So she says, make sure parents know they're in charge of what's being served. So don't ask those kids what they want, because you're going to be serving chicken fingers and fries every day, okay, and ice cream and soda. When kids have small stomachs, it should be about every 2 to 4 hours. And then my little spin on it, based on my reading and my 20 years experience, is make meal times pleasant. So if you're stressed out, you've had drama over meals with your kids before, do a few yoga breaths before you sit down, sing the Frozen song in your head, really give your child label praises for who they are, and do not talk about if and how much they eat. Because if you look at the other side, that's a child's job. They need to be able to listen to their stomach and decide if they're going to eat what's being served and how much. The last thing for the parents to do is to turn off screens. So things that you can say, and I encourage you, I think the value of the family meal is not just the food. The food's like very secondary. It's the nurturing. It's the, oh my gosh, I like the way you put your napkin on your lap. Wow, you had such good manners with the lady at the bank today. Thank you so much for being patient when I was stuck on the phone and helping me with your little brother today. That really was special. And so, I like the way you came home and you were reading your book, and so you just want to make these kids and your spouse and whoever's at the table, make them feel loved for who they are. You'd be amazed at how much everybody is going to enjoy mealtime. And we really want to put the focus off of if someone's eating and how much. They may be coming down with something and they might not be hungry. They may be going to throw up in a few minutes. They might not be hungry. With animals, it's easy. When you have animals, if they don't eat, you're like, it doesn't feel right, right? I would never make my dogs eat. They would throw up on my carpet if I made them eat when they weren't hungry. So they may be growing, they may be eating a lot of food, or they may be emotional. So that's one thing. If you notice that there's a lot of emotions, and for my kids with ADHD too, but also on the spectrum, if there's a lot of stress or trauma that's happened around meal times, you may sometimes doing some exercise or doing some of those mindful activities. They can draw pictures that you can use as placemats on the table, or they can do activities, playing the sandbox, something that will decrease their stress before they come to eat. That's highly recommended. Not always practical. So, but anytime we can, those are great. Those are great things to try. And so what we want the families to do is, instead of like locking up the chips and the this and the that, we really don't recommend policing food. We'd rather have you just kind of fill the house with natural, healthy foods. I think anyone who chooses broccoli over pan dulce is crazy, okay? But I choose not to have the pan dulce in my house. So all of a sudden the broccoli gets more likely to be eaten. We want to keep foods in the house that come from nature, like fruits and vegetables and 100% whole grains, unsweetened dairy, and protein, which can come from plants or animals. And we'll discuss those types in a minute. So kind of how do you figure out if a food's healthy? I always teach the kids, and because a lot of my kids, they love dinosaurs. Was it here when the dinosaurs were here? Like, was it food from nature? And it's not because I'm paleo or anything like that. It's because kids can imagine times when dinosaurs were here. They can know, okay, did the dinosaurs drink soda? No, they would never do that. They would drink water, and so forth. And so, do they eat hot dogs or eggs? Oh no, they'd eat eggs because eggs were here when the dinosaurs were here. So they can kind of get a good visual. So you don't have to read a bunch of labels and get a degree in nutrition to understand that foods that come from nature are the foods that are intended for our bodies. The ultra processed foods that went up during the pandemic, those foods have labels and they typically are less healthy. So they're up and down on the aisles. The natural foods tend to be on the outside of the grocery store. So you don't need to go up and down the aisles. Maybe take your fastest runner and they can run through and get the old-fashioned oatmeal or the olive oil or the vinegar or bottled water, but really, as a whole, most of the foods that are up and down those aisles are not healthy. Everything is fine, everything in moderation, but when you're trying to fill your house up with food, it's, like I said, it's hard to, if there's cookies and candies and chips and Cheetos and broccoli's not going to win that fight. So trying to fill the house with natural foods. And I'll tell you, having children eat natural foods will help not only their bodies, make them more healthy, prevent diabetes, protect their heart, cancer, blah, blah, blah. It's amazing for their moods. In fact, water alone is amazing for foods. If your child is angry, offer them some water. Or yourself. We find that dehydration can cause aggravation, and a lot of times you just don't know. So we teach the kids in my practice to look at their pee. If their pee is yellow, they're probably not drinking enough water. It should be almost clear. And so sometimes if they're having a bad day, if they're feeling frustrated, they can't get themselves situated, maybe drink a glass of water and try to do one of those mindful things. White milk, so the unsweetened dairy is what we recommend. It doesn't have to be dairy. It could be like an oat milk or almond milk or whatever, but I like the fact that a lot of those products still have like calcium, vitamin D, vitamin A, so they're enriched a lot of times, which helps us with a healthy, healthy diet. So but you don't have to have a cow's milk to be healthy. In fact, it doesn't agree with a lot of people. So if it doesn't agree with your family, it's fine. There's some alternatives. The thing is to not pick sweetened alternatives like chocolate milk and even the soy type of milk. It should be from a whole bean source. Many of them are highly processed and have a lot of chemicals in them. So we just try to get it as natural as possible. Water is your best drink by far, though. So fruits, we want to offer a variety of fruit, not fruit juices. I would much rather, when when you squeeze that juice, it really ends up being, the sugar from the fruit, and that you don't feel full from the fruit. So I'd much rather have a child eat an orange and drink water than have orange juice. In fact, kids that drink a lot of juice, we tend to see high triglycerides, and we can see non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which us doctors like to use fancy terms, but that's really from just having too much sugar and the body storing the extra sugar as fat in the liver, and it makes you don't feel sick, you don't turn yellow, but it can give long-term issues with liver. So fruits are amazing, and I got all these people, oh, I can't eat bananas, they're so bad for you, and I'm like, no, if the worst thing you're eating is a banana, you don't need me. So any kind of fruit the child likes, start offering fruits and vegetables at all the meals and snacks, and if they're available, they tend to eat them more. And so I tend to get variety by just buying what's on sale. So if, like right now we're getting persimmons and pomegranates and and pears, and the apples are starting to get good again, and so forth. So you can kind of see what's on sale at the store. They're going to taste better at that time, and they're going to be at a better price at that time. And so you can, in that way, over time, you just go with what's in season. You'll end up spending less on groceries, and then your family will end up getting a good variety of exposure to different fruits and vegetables. So vegetables too. How do you get a kid to eat vegetables? 3 steps. You buy them, you serve them, and you eat them yourself. So studies are very clear that if the parents are eating vegetables, the child's more likely to eat vegetables, especially moms. Even when moms are breastfeeding and pregnant, they're actually affecting the taste buds of the children. So serving a variety of fruits and vegetables throughout the day without comment, just cut them up, put them out. If they eat them, amen. If they don't, try again. And just, you can have fun with them, put them on a train car, put them in a special dish, we can have fun with them. And then, but when that child sits down, don't talk about the vegetables, talk about trains, talk about how wonderful they are. Don't talk about the food. So that's kind of the key in it. There's no harm in cutting things up small, mixing them in with spaghetti sauces and other things that are great gateways to getting kids to eat more vegetables. I, for one, being not a tomato person, started eating more vegetables when I was in medical school, and I'd cut up mushrooms and eggplant and zucchini and peppers really, really small and mix them in with my spaghetti sauce, because I just didn't. Seeing a whole plate of vegetables was just a turn off because of all the trauma that had been happening around vegetables when I grew up. So, so don't fight it. Just keep serving it, keep trying it. Don't make a big deal about it. And over time, like I said, this is the stock market. This is not, don't look at one day of bad sales or whatever. We have to look back over 6 months, a year, and start seeing the changes by making these adjustments. Oh, I didn't know I did it like that. So buy them, serve them, eat them yourself. Proteins, like I said, they can be from plants or animals. So plant proteins would be like nuts and seeds and fish. I'm sorry, not fish, nuts and seeds and beans and those types of foods. And then fish and chicken, eggs, steak, I don't care. As long as the animals, the healthiest proteins from animals are going to be the ones where the animal's more healthy raised. So the one that is raised in a farm versus free range is going to be more healthy. Or like for the fish, the wild caught is not as pretty. When you go to Costco, you see these beautiful salmon, and they're like this thick, and they're beautiful color, and then they're like kind of fishy and skinny and whatever when you look at the wild caught. But the wild caught is actually the one that has that is going to be healthier. So if you can get organic, get it. If you can get more natural, you want to get proteins from animals that are natural, so that aren't mixed in with a lot of chemicals, like typically like many hot dogs and sausages can be. And you'd rather not have it fried. grilled, boiled, and so forth. But like I said, everything in moderation. So processed grains are probably the most complicated. Processed grains are like 100% whole grain. So if you look at this bread, the brown one is 100% whole grain. That looks very similar to the white, but this guy has about 80 to 90% more nutrients. So if you look at my picture over here, a bran and germ and endosperm are the three parts of the grain. When they process a grain, they basically remove the bran and the germ. Well, that's where the phytochemicals that fight cancer from the grain are. They're gone. The vitamins, like I said, the minerals and so forth. It's kind of like the juice. So drinking the orange juice versus eating the orange, you're robbing yourself of the health. And also that's why with the white breads, they turn right into sugar because they don't have the fiber and some of the other things that the whole grains do. So like quinoa, corn tortillas, 100% whole wheat, those types of things, old-fashioned oatmeal as opposed to instant, those are all whole grains, and those are going to be much healthier to serve your family than the white ones, like the white rice. You'd rather do the brown rice or wild rice, that kind of stuff. So whenever you can, trying to get the whole grains, it's just going to add more nutrition to your family. And then the way we put meals together is you fill the house with those 5 food groups. So we talked about fruits and vegetables and dairy and protein and 100% whole grains. And then what we recommend is you do 3, 4, 4. So pick 3 of those for breakfast. So maybe eggs, 100% whole wheat toast, and some strawberries on the side. That's 3 food groups. That's a healthy breakfast. You could go crazy and have a glass of milk with that, or a slice of cheese with that, and you could have a 4th food group, but at least 3 food groups instead of just a piece of bread with toast. You really want to start adding those things. So lunch would be 4 food groups. So lunch could be 100% whole wheat sandwich. You could put, chicken on it or peanut butter on it with like bananas. And then on the side, you want to put a fruit and a vegetable. So even if you put like some lettuce in the sandwich, I would still have some cut up carrots and some grapes or whatever. You want to always just fruit and vegetable anytime you can. They may eat it, they may not, but I want them to start getting used to seeing it instead of chips and a cookie. Dinner, same thing for 4 food groups. So maybe a piece of chicken, maybe a salad or green beans or peas or carrots or whatever. You don't even have to cook it. You can just have cut up raw carrots. Amen. It's on the table. And maybe a quesadilla on corn tortilla or 100% whole wheat. Let's see what else do I have. I have chicken, corn tortilla. We've got, and then like I said, your vegetable and your fruit. So you can do more. You can have cheese on that tortilla. You can have whatever, but we just want to start putting 4 things out. Maybe it's, maybe it's fish and brown rice and blueberries and jicama. There's no judgment. It's just, don't worry about, oh, these are starchy and these are whatever. Just serve. And over time, this will make your whole family more healthy. I pretty much guarantee it. Snacks should be 2 to 3 food groups. So maybe a fruit, a vegetable, and one other thing. So maybe like apples and nuts and carrots or something, or air popped popcorn, which is actually a whole grain, and maybe some cut up like radishes and some blueberries. So there's no judgment. Like take your kids in the store and be like, help pick some fruits and vegetables we can add to our meals and snacks today. I was always surprised when my daughter would do that. She would pick out things that I would have never picked out, like sugar snap peas. She picked them, not me. So it's kind of interesting if they start knowing, oh, we're having fruits and vegetables. It's not like, do you want a fruit or vegetable? It's like, help me pick which ones, or which ones look, what's the color of the team if we're watching a football game today, or what's the color of the holiday. We're making tamales for Christmas Eve. Let's have some red and green fruits and vegetables, maybe some tomato soup, maybe some green grapes. It doesn't have to be fancy. Martha Stewart's not showing up. We just want to start adding those fruits and vegetables. And if your kid likes, they mostly just eat carrots, that's fine. Keep serving the carrots and just start adding other things with it, okay? And then this real quickly, I just wanted to show you, this is our free resource that we have for, that we're creating for the county and really for anybody. It's all web-based, so anyone can access it. There's no membership or anything like that. This is all free. My team and I just came together, especially for my kids that were early learners and special needs. We saw them struggling so much socially, emotionally, physically, and academically during the pandemic that we put together a program called Dr. Patricia's Health Club, Being Healthy from A to Z, where we use letters of the alphabet, A through Z, to help inspire kids to be more healthy. And it's all done with my friends, these birds, different birds like Agua, who's all into drinking water, and Warner, who's into safety, and Sport, who's into sports, and Barry, who's into fruit, and Boogie, who's into dancing. We got Pathy, social emotional lessons. Z over here is into sleep. So each bird represents a different healthy habit. And we've had a lot of success with it. These are the birds. You can see them much more easily. All these meet standards for kindergarten. And so if you have a young child or a kid with special needs that they might like doing it, they can get books online. They're in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and we're working on other languages. A always means apple, but the explanation's different. Like I said, here's O, he's in charge of the outdoors. Spoon does family meals. Pathy does social emotional things. There's Boogie, he does dancing. So each bird represents these different healthy habits, and they inspire the kids to be more healthy. And so if we've reached already, since the pandemic, it's actually closer to 15,000 children with this program. We were Zooming when they were home at distance learning, and then we started Zooming in when they were in class, and now we're doing in-school presentations as well, which is really fun. We've made some videos. The videos were such a success in the different school districts we were working with that now we're working with the county to create one video for each letter of the alphabet that parents and teachers can use on demand. So this is an example after the lessons. So this is for B. You could, be healthy by going to the beach or having a breakfast or broccoli, riding your bike, doing ballet, breathing, reading books, bowling, eating beets, making a board box when you're bored, bananas, blueberries, blackberries, playing with a ball. So they learn all these things in these little books that we have online or the class presentations, and we ask them to draw a picture on how they can use the letter of the day to be more healthy. So if your kid is already learning a letter, you could just, hey, let's look on this online, and you could, do this. They can submit their drawings online, and they can actually win prizes. And then we also encourage them to teach other kids how to become other people at home. So what are you going to teach your family at home on how to use the letter B to be more healthy? So they're all free, like I said, at this website, the drphc.org. There's recipes that my team has come up with that are all free. They're all fruits and vegetables, because I felt really funny about having like chicken and stuff like that when you're having birds like as the main person. So I'm not a vegetarian, but it just felt weird. So we have tons of recipes for fruits and vegetables that are very simple, that it goes from A to Z, so you can find a radish recipe and so forth. We've been doing PSAs on PBS SoCal and reached over 750,000. We plan on reaching about 3 million this coming year with this program. We're just trying to drench people with information on how to cope and to heal from the pandemic and how to be healthy. So our videos are coming out, so that we actually built a set with some people, and we've been able to videotape A and B. We're hoping to work with the Center for Autism and actually do a screening with you. So if you have a movie night or something, we can show one of our letters of the alphabet. And we have like the top puppeteer in the world. It's been wonderful. So from my perspective, I just want to make sure that, if anybody has any questions specifically about anything we covered, or any resources that they might need in the community to learn more.
Dr. Riba, I've got a question. So I just want to say thank you so much for your presentation. I will make sure to reach out. I know we talked with Chelsea already, and I'll make sure to reach out to her again about collaborating. So the question is, you spoke about different techniques to expanding food choices.
Yes.
For children with restricted diets. So like integrating vegetables and grains and meal planning. What is a good day one first step? Like, like you said, you don't want to do it all at once. It has to come very slowly. So first day, what would you suggest?
So my thing the first day would be just start drinking more water. We find that, it's so interesting. Our bodies, like our taste buds are so influenced by the foods that we do eat. So if you're drinking a lot of sugary drinks like juices and Capri Suns and, sodas, that kind of thing, then, then you're not going to want a bitter food like a vegetable. So everybody's like, how do I get my kid to eat vegetables? And I'm like, by all means, start serving fruits and vegetables, but first work on sugary drinks. So start just at having more water available and not having those as available at home. If they're at a party, don't make a big deal, but you don't want to single them out and be like, oh my God, you can't have this. You don't want it to be this forbidden food. But it's so much easier to get them to drink water when there's nothing else to drink. So that's the one thing, is just getting the children to drink more water, less like chocolate milk and less sodas and juices. That goes a long way. And then just start adding fruits and vegetables. Like I laugh so hard. I go to like TJ Maxx and